Hiya gang, so this is like a public service announcement before the video. I'm just editing it now, and I've realised that the special microphone I bought, this one here, the special fluffy one, which is supposed to stop the wind, it sort of didn't really stop the wind, but it also kept blowing in front of all the shots. So you're going to see, it's really annoying, you're going to see these things that are hanging in front of the screen all the time. It's not your eyes, it's just this. I thought I'd been really clever. Like, I gave it a haircut at the front, and I even used some hairspray, which may or may not have been mine, to kind of spike it up, and it just didn't work. So a lot of the shots you're about to see, unfortunately, have got this kind of weird, straggly, hairy bits at the top. But just try to ignore them and enjoy the video. Thanks, gang. Hiya, gang. Or should I say, God Piran Lowen, which means Happy St. Piran's Day. Because this week is St. Piran's Day, so we've come to Piran Sands for our pilgrimage today. It's quite near Newquay, so some of you might have been here. And there's some really special ancient things here to do with St. Piran, who is the patron saint of Cornwall. So let's go on a journey and see if we can find those things. This week I've invited Reverend Jane to come and speak to us as well, because Reverend Jane, who works at St Michael's with me, who some of you will know I'm sure, is an expert in all things Cornish. She even speaks fluent Cornish. So she's given us a little interview, and she's going to tell us bits and pieces about Piran and Cornish heritage. As we're celebrating St Piran this week, can you tell us a bit about St Piran and his story, please?
Well, the real St Piran and the story about St Piran are two different things. Now, the story about St Piran is that he lived in Ireland and he got into trouble with the local kings when he wanted to tell them all about Jesus, and they tied him to a millstone and tipped him over the cliff into the sea, and miraculously the millstone floated and he came all the way to Cornwall and he landed on the beach of Piran, and he started preaching to all the local people, telling them all about Jesus. Apparently his very first audience was a badger and a fox and a bear. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what they say. They also say that one night when St Piran was sitting by his fire, he put some black stone on, and this black stone melted, and out of the fire came a stream of silver tin. And so St Piran was the patron saint, that means the special saint, for the tinners. But nowadays, the whole of Cornwall celebrates St Piran and has our special day for him. Now, the truth about St Piran is not quite so much fun. We do know that he came from Ireland, and he probably came across in a little round boat called a coracle, which is a bit like a millstone, I suppose. He certainly landed at Piran, and he built a church there, and he went round Cornwall. He must have done, because there are churches all over Cornwall that are specially for him, dedicated to him. But after that, he actually went over the sea to Brittany in France, and there are churches that have St Piran's name in Brittany. So he was actually a saint in Brittany as well as in Cornwall. So he did an awful lot. He didn't just stay in Cornwall. I don't think Brittany feels he's quite so special for them as he is for us.
So if you get lost out on the dunes, you can find these white stones that are by the pathways, and these white stones will always lead you on to St Piran's cross and St Piran's oratory. So just keep following them, because it's quite a big landscape, look, and there's loads of little paths crisscrossing all over it. But if you find one of these white stones, you know you're on the right track, so you just follow those, keep following them, and the path will eventually lead you to the pilgrimage sites in the dunes.
We're really lucky, aren't we, that we're able to touch it. Come on. Wow. Where's the old writing? Can you see how it's got the holes in it? Oh, that's the...
So do you remember a Celtic cross is always joined round at the top to make a circle?
I thought, if you look at it, see that from there.
Yeah, if you come around this way, you can see the sky through the holes.
If you look at that, if you look from here, Dad, if you look from here, if you look from here, it's just like a straight stone, but we like turn around.
Yeah. So historians think this is the oldest Celtic cross in Cornwall. This is the most ancient cross in Cornwall. The Southwest National Trail coast path runs through these dunes as well, and you'll see these signs all over the place. And this acorn on the post, that's the sign of a national trail, so you see those all over the country. Wherever you see one of those acorn posts, you know you're on one of the major national trails that makes up the footpaths across the UK. So this is the ruins of the old St Piran's church that was built here in the middle of the sand dunes. It was here for like nearly 1,000 years, and then at the end of the 19th century they decided that they had so many problems with it getting buried in sand that they took the whole church apart and took it up the road to Piran and put it back together as the church there. So what's left are these kind of ruins here, and you can see the old church walls going along, and this bit here, you see there's a little step down and then that goes up. So this would have been the sanctuary up here where the altar is. So everyone would have sat facing this way. And then up here would have been the altar. And we know that for a few reasons. Partly because this way faces east and churches always face east. So east is in this direction. But also over here is this little gap. And next to an altar on this side there's always this little gap, and this is the place where we hold the elements, the bread and the wine, and it's also the place where we pour the holy water in when we finish with it, because holy water is special and it can't just be chucked away, it has to go back into holy ground, into the consecrated ground. And so there'll be a little well in here, and you pour the water in it and it will go down into the ground. So that's one of the other reasons we know that this is where the altar would have been in the church. So the priest would have stood here looking out this way, but of course there would have been walls and a building all around them in the past, but now it's just this ruin. And then this area here at the other end of the church would have been the bell tower. So you've got the square foundations here for the bell tower, and you can even see down here, look, on the base of this pillar, that proper kind of carved stonework. And this would have been a great big pillar going up into a tower.
There's a real thud when you hit the ground. We would have to jump on some planks. Wait, let's just go.
Okay, let's go for it.
A wooden plank and something that looks like rubber that we probably have to cross. It's like a mini bridge.
So this is St Piran's oratory. Now at this time of year, as you can see, it's underwater. But if you come late spring and through the summer and autumn, the winter rains haven't come, and you can see it not underwater. Now this is an ancient building. I think it's probably the most ancient surviving Christian building in all of Cornwall, the place where St Piran came when he first landed in Cornwall and then started to spread Christianity. So let's have a little look at the history of this place now.
St Piran's oratory is probably one of the oldest Christian buildings in all of Britain, and almost certainly the oldest in Cornwall. It's been here since at least the 6th century, but there was probably like a wattle and door building that was there before that was even older. Now, it was used until the 10th century. By that point, though, the sand had become such a problem in burying it that the oratory was abandoned, and they built the big church that we've just seen. Now that church was used until about the 18th, 19th century, and again that was buried in sand, and so as I said, they up sticks and went from there as well. So there's not one but two old churches buried in these dunes. Now this oratory, after it was abandoned in about the 10th century, it was under sand for hundreds and hundreds of years.
and it kind of didn't resurface until the late 18th century, when a little bit of it poked out when a storm had blown some sand away, and so an archaeologist called William Mitchell excavated it and found what was there. And then it became a real destination for kind of tourists and pilgrims, but also treasure seekers as well, and lots of bits of it were taken away. And there was quite a lot of vandalism as well, unfortunately. So there was a gate put around it, and then in 1910 they decided to build this big concrete wall you can see around it to try and stop the sand from pressing in and breaking it any further. Unfortunately, there were more problems with vandalism and flooding and theft, and so in 1980 the decision was made to bury it again, which seems really daft to me, but that's what they decided to do. So they buried it again in 1980, and then in 2015 the St Piran's Trust raised enough money to dig it back out again and re-excavate it, and it is as we see it now. Now I think there are hopes that it will be brought into a better state, because at the moment, you know, it's often flooded as it is here, and there's this kind of really not very nice concrete wall around it, but it's still a really special place, and it's kind of it's the birthplace of Christianity in Cornwall, in our county. It's pretty magic.
On Friday, the 5th of March, there'll be sort of a big procession around the oratory at Piran Sands there, with a sort of St Piran Society, and there's a thing called the Cornish Gorsedd, who I imagine will be part of those celebrations as well.
Certainly.
And you're the chaplain to the Gorsedd, so could you tell us what all of that means, please?
Yes. Well, the Gorsedd is the gathering of people who are called bards. Now, a bard a long time ago was a poet, but people who have done something very special for Cornwall are invited to be bards. Either you've learnt to speak the Cornish language very well, you've passed exams, and that's how I came to be a bard, or you've done something special for Cornish music or Cornish history or all sorts of different things. And those people are invited to become bards. Most of them do. And then we meet once a year, usually at the beginning of September, and we have a ceremony, and we all wear our blue robes. So there's lots and lots of blue, and it looks fabulous. It's one of the best days of the year for me. And at that ceremony, we initiate. That means we bring in the people who are going to be new bards that year, and we do all sorts of other things as well. And we go and have a slap-up tea with pasty and saffron cake and heavy cake and all sorts of stuff.
Sounds great.
And after you've been standing in the sun for an hour, by golly, you want your cup of tea and your saffron cake. But my special job for the Gorsedd is being the chaplain. That means that I look after running church services in the Cornish language on the day after the Gorsedd, and also at other times in the year. So St Piran's Day is one of those days when we have a special service, and that's what we're doing on Friday on Zoom.
So this is one of the most modern holy crosses in Cornwall, and it sits right at the top of the dunes here, so that you can see it for miles around, and pilgrims out on the dunes can find their way to St Piran's oratory by following the view of this cross on the hill. Pretty enormous, look.
So the big cross in the dunes is the last destination of our pilgrimage today, and all that leaves us now is to head back across the sand to the car park. And I thought this week we would end with a special version of the Lord's Prayer, led by Reverend Jane, in actual Cornish.
So I shall say, let's pray first in Cornish, which is Gren Pisi. Agan tasni, ys in nef, benigis rebo dda hanna, redeffo dda la wasgo, dda bodd rebo gris, in nor kepar hag in nef. Roedd ni heddiw ag yn barod pydyddol, a gaf ddim ag yn camwydd. Kepar daleben ni fy mrena ys o camwyl ag yn pinni. Han a ra ag yn gore yn temptasiwn, mes dy lef ni ddiwodd drog. Rag these o G, yon lasgor, han galos, han gordians. This thicken habinari. Amen.
Oh man, that sounds awesome. I think you should just start breaking that into Cornish in all of our services, Jane.
That would be great.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And it's the only thing I know how to say in Cornish, which is Gul Peran Lowen.
Yes, Gul Peran Lowen. That's right.
Gul Peran
Happy
Lowen.
St. Piran's time.
Happy St. Piran's Day. Brilliant. Thanks, Jane. That was great.
My pleasure.
I'm going to leave you this week with a performance by some very good friends of mine called Brother C, and they're really amazing Cornish band, and you should check them out if you enjoy this. God bless everyone.
In the sun's evening glow, on June Hill at Newlyn, to watch the fishing fleet go, watch the sheet wheels at Givo as they spun around, and heard the men singing as they went underground, and no one will ever move me from this land until the Lord calls me to sit at his hand, for this is my Eden, and I'm not alone, for this is my Cornwall, and this is my home. I've left childish footsteps in the soft Sennan sand. I've chased the maids down there, all giggly and tanned. I've stood on the cliff top in a westerly blow, and heard the waves thunder on the rocks far below, and no one will ever move me from this land until the Lord calls me to sit at his hand, for this is my Eden, and I'm not alone, for this is my Cornwall, and this is my own. First thing in the morning, on Chapel Cambrai, I gaze at the ceilings in the blue far away, and this is my Cornwall, and I'll tell you why. Because I was born here, and here I shall die. I'm not alone, for this is my Cornwall, and this is my own, for this is my Cornwall, and this is my home.
Bless you guys. Thank you so much. We've been Brother C. It really is an honor and a privilege to play in this amazing space and to share the evening with you beautiful people.